Jake Morrison walked through the shining corridors of Harmony Point Station with careful steps. The artificial gravity felt strange under his feet, lighter than Earth's pull but heavier than the moon bases where he had trained. Around him, aliens of 12 different species moved about their daily business. Some looked like giant insects with clicking mandibles. Others were fish-like creatures in water suits that gurgled when they spoke. After 3 years here, Jake still felt like an outsider. The human ambassador carried a small tablet in his hands. On it were the final trade agreements that would change everything for Earth. His home planet was still new to space travel. Only 20 years ago, humans had figured out how to move faster than light. Most alien species had been doing it for thousands of years. They looked down on humans like adults watching children play with toys. Jake stopped at a large window that showed the empty space around the station. Somewhere out there, Captain Lisa Parker waited in her ship, the UES Defender. Jake knew she was watching everything through her sensors. Lisa had fought in the wars on Mars when humans tried to build colonies there. She understood danger better than most people. Right now, Jake wished he had her soldiers' instincts. The Zeltharian Confederation controlled this part of the galaxy. 12 alien species had joined together to create a powerful group. The Kythera were the leaders, insect-like beings who thought they were better than everyone else. Their bodies were covered in hard shells, and their eyes were like black mirrors. They spoke in clicking sounds that the translation machines could barely understand. Jake had spent months learning their customs. The Kythera liked order and rules. They respected strength but despised weakness. When humans first asked to join their trade networks, the Kythera had laughed. They called humans soft meat creatures who would never amount to anything important. Everything changed when human engineers solved an old problem for them. Zeltharian ships had always had trouble with their power systems. Energy would build up in the wrong places and cause explosions. Human quantum computers found a solution in just 3 days. What had puzzled alien scientists for centuries was easy for human technology to fix. After that, the Kythera started paying attention. They agreed to let Jake set up this meeting. Today was supposed to be the day they signed the first real agreement between humans and aliens. Earth would get access to alien trade routes. The aliens would get human computer technology. It seemed like a fair deal. Jake turned away from the window and walked toward the main meeting hall. His security team followed behind him. There were 4 humans in black uniforms, each carrying plasma weapons. They looked tough, but Jake knew they were outgunned if anything went wrong. The station had hundreds of alien security guards, all armed with weapons that could cut through steel. The meeting hall was enormous, with a ceiling that reached up like a cathedral. Representatives from all 12 species sat around a circular table. The Kythera delegation clicked and buzzed among themselves. The aquatic Morathi floated in their water tanks, their tentacles moving in slow patterns. Other species that Jake still couldn't pronounce the names of watched him with curious eyes. Ambassador Morrison took his seat at the table. The chair had been made specially for human size, since most aliens were either much larger or much smaller than people from Earth. Jake placed his tablet on the table and looked around the room. Everyone was waiting for him to speak. "Friends," Jake began, using the formal greeting he had practiced. "Today we make history. Humans and the Zeltharian Confederation will work together for the good of all our peoples." The lead Kythera representative, whose name sounded like breaking glass, clicked its approval. "The agreement is acceptable to us. Your species has proven more useful than we first believed." Jake tried not to show his anger at the insult. These aliens still thought humans were inferior, even after seeing what human technology could do. But the agreement was more important than his pride. Earth needed these trade routes to survive as a spacefaring civilization. The ceremony continued with long speeches from each species. Jake had heard most of it before during the negotiations. The aliens loved to talk about their ancient civilizations and great achievements. They rarely mentioned that most of them had been at peace for so long they had forgotten how to fight real wars. As Jake reached for his tablet to sign the final documents, he noticed something wrong. The Kythera guards near the doors had moved to new positions. Their weapons were no longer pointed at the floor. Instead, they were aimed at the center of the room where Jake sat. Time slowed down as Jake's mind processed what was happening. These weren't regular security guards. The markings on their shells were different, showing symbols he didn't recognize. These Cathera belonged to some kind of radical group that opposed the alliance with humans. Jake started to stand up, but it was already too late. The lead assassin raised his plasma rifle and fired without warning. The bright energy beam hit Jake in the head, killing him instantly. His body fell backward in his chair as smoke rose from the terrible wound. The other aliens in the room screamed and tried to run. Some called for security while others hid under the table. The Kythera assassins stood perfectly still, their weapons ready to kill anyone else who moved. They had planned this moment carefully. Captain Lisa Parker heard about the attack within seconds. Her communications officer, Beth Williams, was monitoring all channels from the station. When Beth's face went white with shock, Lisa knew something terrible had happened. "Captain," Beth said in a shaking voice. "Ambassador Morrison is dead. He was shot during the signing ceremony." Lisa felt rage build up inside her chest like a fire that couldn't be put out. She had known Jake for 5 years. He was a good man who believed that humans and aliens could work together in peace. Now, he was dead because alien extremists thought humans were too inferior to deserve respect. The official Zeltharian response came quickly. The Confederation leaders claimed they were shocked by the attack. They said the assassins were rogue elements that they couldn't control. They offered apologies and promised to investigate the crime. Lisa laughed bitterly as she read their messages. These aliens still didn't understand what they had done. They thought they could kill a human ambassador and solve the problem with words and investigations. They had no idea that they had just declared war on the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Jake Morrison had been more than just an ambassador. He represented Earth's hope for peaceful contact with alien civilizations. His death proved that peace was impossible with beings who saw humans as inferior creatures. Now there would be a different kind of contact between humans and aliens. Lisa opened a secure channel to Earth Command. Her message was short and simple. "Ambassador Morrison is dead. Request immediate activation of all military protocols." The response came back just as quickly. "Protocols activated. Prepare for war." The aliens who had killed Jake Morrison thought they were sending a message about human weakness. Instead, they were about to learn that humans had spent their entire history perfecting the art of revenge. The galaxy was about to discover why Earth had conquered its own planet through endless warfare. The age of human diplomacy was over. The age of human vengeance was about to begin. The emergency meeting room beneath Geneva was filled with the most powerful people on Earth. President Helen Carter sat at the head of the long table, her face hard as stone. She had been president for 6 years and had seen many crises, but nothing like this. The holographic display in the center of the room showed Jake Morrison's final moments over and over again. Each time the plasma beam hit him, Carter felt her anger grow stronger. General Marcus Stone stood next to the display, pointing at tactical information with his laser pointer. Stone was a big man with gray hair and scars on his hands from the colonial wars. He had been preparing for this moment since humans first traveled to the stars. While diplomats talked about peace, Stone had been studying how to fight aliens. The Zeltharian Confederation has 43 major worlds and over 200 smaller colonies, Stone explained to the room. Their military forces are spread across 12 different species. They have been at peace for over 300 years. Carter looked around the table at the representatives from every Earth nation. The Chinese delegate, Liu Chen, nodded grimly. The European Union representative, Klaus Weber, was taking notes on his tablet. The African Federation leader, Amara Okafor, stared at the screen with cold eyes. All of them had the same expression of barely controlled fury. "What are our options, General?" Carter asked. Stone pressed a button and the display changed to show Earth's secret military installations. Most people on Earth didn't know these places existed. Hidden in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter were shipyards that had been building warships for 15 years. Deep underground on Earth were laboratories where scientists created weapons that would make aliens wake up screaming. "We have the Morrison Protocol," Stone said simply. The room went quiet. Every person at the table knew about the Morrison Protocol, even though it was classified above top secret. It was named after the ambassador who had just been murdered, but it had been written years ago when Earth first made contact with aliens. The protocol outlined exactly what would happen if any human representative was killed by alien forces. Dr. Amanda Foster walked to the front of the room. She was the head of Earth's weapons development program, a small woman with brilliant eyes who looked like she should be teaching at a university instead of designing instruments of war. But Amanda had grown up reading about the Holocaust and the atomic bombs dropped on Japan. She understood that sometimes terrible weapons were necessary to protect innocent people. The aliens think they know about human technology, Amanda began. They've seen our plasma rifles and kinetic weapons. They think we're primitive because we've only had space travel for 20 years. They have no idea what we've really been building. Amanda pressed her own button, and new images appeared on the screen. The first showed a sleek missile that was as long as a city block. Relativistic kill vehicles, she explained. We accelerate them to 90% of light speed and aim them at enemy planets. When they hit, they release more energy than 100 nuclear bombs. The next image showed tiny robots that looked like metal insects. Nanite swarms. Each one is smaller than a virus, but they work together to eat through enemy ships from the inside. They can consume an entire space station in hours. The final image was the most frightening of all. It showed a bomb that seemed to bend the light around it. Quantum disruption devices. They break apart the forces that hold atoms together. Anything hit by one of these weapons simply stops existing. Liu Chen raised his hand. Dr. Foster, do these weapons violate the galactic laws of war? Amanda smiled coldly. The galactic laws of war were written by species that forgot how to fight real wars. They assume everyone will follow rules of honor and restraint. Humans never agreed to those laws because humans were never invited to help write them. President Carter stood up slowly. Everyone in the room turned to look at her. She had been elected on a platform of peace and cooperation with alien species. But Jake Morrison had been her friend since college. She had personally chosen him to be Earth's first ambassador to the aliens. His death felt like losing a member of her own family. The Zeltharian Confederation killed our ambassador, Carter said in a voice that could cut through steel. They did it on live video so the whole galaxy would see. They wanted to show that humans don't deserve respect. They wanted to prove that we're too weak to respond. Carter walked to the window that looked out over the city of Geneva. Millions of people lived their normal lives above this underground room, not knowing that their leaders were about to make a decision that would change galactic history forever. General Stone, activate the Morrison Protocol immediately. Dr. Foster, prepare all weapons for deployment. I want every ship in the Terran battle fleet ready to launch within 72 hours. Stone nodded and began typing commands into his secure terminal. Across the solar system, hidden bases received coded messages that started a chain reaction of preparation. Ship crews who had been training in secret for years suddenly found themselves on full combat alert. Weapons that had never been tested, outside of computer simulations, were loaded onto vessels designed for one purpose: the complete destruction of Earth's enemies. Captain Lisa Parker received her new orders while still orbiting the diplomatic station where Jake Morrison had died. Her communications officer, Beth Williams, handed her a sealed datapad with shaking hands. When Lisa read the contents, her eyes grew wide with amazement and terrible anticipation. Beth, get me a secure channel to Earth Command, Lisa ordered. Channel, open, Captain. This is Captain Parker of the UES Defender. Confirming receipt of Morrison Protocol activation orders. Request permission to begin Phase 1 operations. The voice that answered belonged to Admiral Kevin Cross, the commander of Earth's entire space fleet. Cross was a legend among human military officers, a man who had fought in every major conflict since the Luna City Rebellion. His voice was calm, but filled with deadly promise. Permission granted, Captain Parker. You are hereby transferred to Battle Fleet Command. Proceed to coordinates Tango 77 for fleet assembly. Admiral Cross out. Lisa turned to her crew, most of whom had served with her for years. They had all heard rumors about secret weapons and hidden fleets, But none of them knew how real those rumors were. Now they were about to find out. Tactical. Officer Cole. Set course for the assembly point, maximum speed. Yes, Captain, course laid in. Communications Officer Williams. Send a message to the Zeltharian Confederation leadership. Tell them we're returning to Earth to report on the ambassador's death. Make it sound routine. Message sent, Captain. Lisa looked out at the stars and thought about Jake Morrison. He had believed that humans and aliens could learn to trust each other. His death proved that some aliens would never see humans as equals, but they were about to learn that humans didn't need to be seen as equals. They only needed to be feared. The UES Defender jumped to hyperspace, leaving the diplomatic station behind. In 72 hours, it would return as part of the largest human military force ever assembled. The aliens who had killed Ambassador Morrison thought they were ending human involvement in galactic politics. Instead, they had guaranteed that human involvement would be written in blood and fire across every star system in their confederation. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when you killed a human diplomat. The lesson would be taught in a language that every species would understand. Overwhelming, merciless violence that would echo through history, as a warning to anyone who threatened Earth's children. The space around the Kythera military outpost suddenly filled with human warships. One moment the stars were empty, and the next moment 47 vessels appeared out of hyperspace like angry ghosts. The largest ship was the UES Retribution, a massive dreadnought that was longer than most alien space stations. Admiral Kevin Cross stood on its bridge, watching the alien defenders scramble to respond to his fleet's arrival. Cross was 58 years old and had spent his entire adult life preparing for this moment. He had gray hair and cold blue eyes that had seen too many battles. The scars on his left hand came from fighting pirates in the outer colonies. The medal on his chest was for stopping a rebellion on Europa. But nothing in his career had prepared him for the satisfaction he felt right now. "Admiral, the alien fleet is moving to intercept us," reported Commander Tony Martinez from the tactical station. 30 ships, mostly Kythera design. They're broadcasting surrender demands. Cross almost laughed. The aliens thought 30 ships could intimidate a human battle fleet. They had no idea that human military doctrine was based on overwhelming superiority in every engagement. Earth didn't fight fair wars. Earth fought wars it could win completely. "Open a channel to all ships," Cross ordered. Throughout the human fleet, ship captains listened to their admiral's voice. Captain Danny Shaw commanded the destroyer UES Lightning, the fastest ship in the fleet. Captain Carol Reed led the cruiser UES Thunder, armed with weapons that could crack a moon in half. Every captain had trained for years in secret, knowing that this day would eventually come. "This is Admiral Cross." His voice echoed through every human ship. "The aliens killed Ambassador Morrison because they thought we were weak. Today we show them how wrong they were. Remember your training. Show no mercy. Make them understand that human blood has a price they cannot afford to pay." The alien fleet reached firing range first. Kythera ships unleashed streams of plasma energy that lit up space like green lightning. Their weapons were advanced, designed by a species that had mastered energy manipulation for thousands of years. The plasma beams struck human shields and scattered harmlessly into space. Captain Shaw smiled as he watched the alien attack fail completely. Human shields were based on different technology than anything the aliens had seen. Instead of trying to absorb energy, human shields redirected it into parallel dimensions where it could do no harm. The concept was so advanced that most alien scientists would need years just to understand how it worked. "All ships return fire," Cross commanded. The human response was nothing like the alien attack. Instead of energy beams, human ships launched solid projectiles accelerated to incredible speeds. Railgun rounds traveled at significant fractions of light speed, hitting alien ships with the force of nuclear explosions. Kythera vessels that had survived battles for centuries were torn apart in seconds. Captain Carol Reed watched her target, a Kythera heavy cruiser, simply vanish in a cloud of expanding debris. Her weapons officer, Lieutenant Bob Clark, was already targeting the next enemy ship. Carol had learned to fight in the asteroid mining conflicts where pirates used civilian ships as shields. She knew how to kill efficiently without wasting ammunition. The alien admiral, whose name translated roughly to Sharp Blade of Victory, watched his fleet die with growing horror. His ships were advanced and his crews were well trained, but they fought like beings who had known peace for generations. The humans fought like creatures that had evolved in constant warfare. "Request immediate reinforcements," Sharp Blade ordered his communications officer. "Send distress signals to all nearby fleets. These humans are more dangerous than our intelligence indicated." But reinforcements would take hours to arrive and the battle was ending in minutes. Human ships moved with coordination that seemed impossible. They communicated through quantum-encrypted channels that alien technology could not intercept. Every human captain knew exactly where every other human ship would be at any given moment. The destroyer UES Lightning accelerated past a crippled Kythera vessel, its captain scanning for survivors. Danny Shaw had orders to take prisoners for interrogation, but the alien ship exploded before he could deploy rescue equipment. Either the Kythera preferred death to capture, or their ships were designed to self-destruct to prevent humans from studying their technology. "Admiral Cross, this is Captain Shaw. The training facility is defenseless. All escort vessels have been destroyed or disabled." Cross nodded with satisfaction. The first part of his demonstration was complete. Now came the lesson that would echo across the galaxy for centuries. "Captain Shaw, deploy the nanite swarms. I want that facility consumed completely. Leave nothing for archaeologists to study." Danny Shaw pressed a button that released millions of tiny machines from his ship's cargo bay. Each nanite was smaller than a grain of sand but programmed with one simple mission: disassemble everything made of metal or composite materials. The swarms moved toward the Kythera training facility like silver clouds of death. The aliens inside the facility watched their walls begin to dissolve. Emergency systems tried to seal hull breaches, but the nanites consumed the repair materials as quickly as they were deployed. Within an hour, the massive military complex that had trained Kythera soldiers for 3 centuries was nothing but floating particles of basic elements. Admiral Cross opened a communication channel that broadcast to every Zeltharian world simultaneously. His message was simple and delivered in perfect Kythera language, which surprised many aliens who thought humans were too primitive to master their complex speech patterns. "I am Admiral Kevin Cross of the Terran Battle Fleet. Your species killed Ambassador Jake Morrison, a representative of Earth sent in peace. This facility trained the extremists who committed that crime. Its destruction is your first warning." The Admiral paused to let his words sink in before continuing. "You have 72 hours to surrender every individual involved in the ambassador's murder. You will also surrender the leaders of the Purity Seekers movement and provide complete intelligence on their operations. If you comply, we will consider limiting our response to the complete destruction of your military capabilities." Lieutenant Commander Sarah Brooks, the fleet's communications officer, watched alien responses flood in from across Zeltharian space. The Confederation leaders were panicking, sending desperate messages offering trade concessions, monetary payments, and promises of justice. They still thought this was a negotiation that could be resolved through diplomacy. "Admiral, the Zeltharian leadership is requesting a formal peace conference," Sarah reported. "They want to meet on neutral ground to discuss reparations." Cross looked at the messages with contempt. These aliens killed a human ambassador and now wanted to solve the problem. With a committee meeting, they had no understanding of human psychology or the depth of Earth's commitment to avenging its dead. "Send them our response," Cross ordered. "Tell them we are not interested in conferences or reparations. We want the murderers, and we want them now. Explain that humans do not negotiate with the killers of our people. We simply kill them back." The 72 hours passed slowly. Zeltharian leaders tried everything they could think of to appease the angry humans. They offered technological exchanges, territorial concessions, and even hostages from their own families. None of it mattered to Admiral Cross, who spent the time studying intelligence reports on Kythera population centers. When the deadline expired with no surrender of Morrison's killers, Cross gathered his ship captains for a final briefing. The holographic display showed the Kythera homeworld, a planet of 12 billion insects who thought their advanced civilization made them untouchable. "The aliens have chosen to protect the murderers rather than hand them over for justice," Cross announced. "They believe their superior numbers and defensive positions will save them." It's time to show the galaxy what happens when you kill a human diplomat. Captain Shaw raised his hand. Admiral, what are our rules of engagement for civilian populations? Cross's expression became even colder. The Kythera species collectively decided to protect Morrison's killers. That makes every Kythera a legitimate military target. Our mission is to ensure this species never again has the capability to threaten human lives. The human fleet turned toward the Kythera homeworld, carrying weapons that would redefine what galactic warfare could become. The aliens were about to learn that humans had not spent thousands of years fighting each other without learning some very important lessons about the complete destruction of enemies. The Kythera homeworld of Chitros had never seen an enemy fleet in its skies. For over 1,000 years, the insect species had ruled their corner of the galaxy without fear. Their cities stretched across 7 continents, each one home to billions of Kythera who believed their civilization was eternal. That belief died when Admiral Cross brought the full power of humanity to their doorstep. The human fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation around Chitros. 47 warships surrounded the planet like a cage of steel and death. Admiral Cross stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, looking down at the world that had produced Ambassador Morrison's killers. His orders from Earth were simple. Make sure the Kythera could never threaten humans again. Admiral, we're receiving hundreds of surrender requests from the planet's surface, reported Commander Sarah Brooks. The planetary government wants to negotiate a ceasefire. They're offering to turn over the Purity Seekers' leadership and pay compensation for the ambassador's death. Cross deleted the messages without reading them. Too late for negotiations. They had their chance to surrender the killers. Now they face the consequences of protecting murderers. Captain Danny Shaw watched from his destroyer as massive human ships moved into attack positions. The UES Vengeance was the largest warship humanity had ever built, carrying enough firepower to crack a continent. Its captain, Ellen Price, had lost her brother in the Mars colonial wars. She understood what it meant to avenge fallen humans. The first weapon Admiral Cross deployed was one the aliens had never imagined. Quantum disruption bombs fell toward Chitros like drops of liquid starlight. When they detonated in the planet's atmosphere, they didn't create explosions. Instead, they created holes in reality itself where the basic forces holding matter together simply stopped working. Dr. Amanda Foster had designed the quantum bombs during sleepless nights in her underground laboratory. She knew they violated every law of physics that alien scientists thought they understood. The weapons didn't destroy matter. They made matter forget how to exist. Entire Kythera cities vanished into expanding spheres of nothingness. Colonel Nathan Price led the first wave of human Marines to land on Chitros. His soldiers were not there to occupy territory or take prisoners. They were there to hunt down every member of the Purity Seekers organization and execute them on live video feeds broadcast across the galaxy. Price had served in the Brutal Ground, campaigns on Europa where human rebels tried to break away from Earth. He knew how to break an enemy's will to fight. The Kythera military tried to defend their homeworld, but their weapons were designed for fighting other civilized species who followed rules of war. Human soldiers used tactics that the insects found incomprehensible. Marines would capture Kythera civilians and use them as human shields. They would poison water supplies and release biological weapons in civilian areas. They fought without honor because honor was a luxury Earth could not afford. Captain Lisa Parker commanded the orbital bombardment from her position aboard the UES Defender. Her ship's weapons could target individual buildings from space with perfect accuracy. When Kythera forces tried to hide in schools or hospitals, Lisa simply destroyed the entire structure. The aliens had killed Jake Morrison during a peace ceremony, proving they had no respect for civilized rules of conduct. The hunting of the Purity Seekers took 3 days. Human intelligence officers had spent years learning to identify individual Kythera through their unique shell patterns and pheromone signatures. Advanced sensors could track a single insect through the ruins of their burning cities. When humans found their targets, the executions were broadcast live to every world in the Zeltharian Confederation. Commander Rachel Miller led the assault on the Kythera government complex in their capital city. Her soldiers moved through the building methodically, killing every official who had voted to protect the ambassador's murderers. The Kithra leadership begged for mercy, offering to surrender completely and become human vassals. Miller's response was to shoot them personally while the cameras recorded everything. But Admiral Cross was not satisfied with killing just the guilty parties. Earth's military doctrine demanded that enemies be rendered permanently incapable of future aggression. The Kithra species as a whole had chosen to protect Morrison's killers instead of handing them over for justice. That made every Kithra a potential threat to human safety. The second phase of the assault involved weapons that redefined what genocide could look like. Nanite swarms were released into Chitros' atmosphere, programmed to target the specific proteins that Kithra used for reproduction. The tiny machines would ensure that no new Kithra could ever be born, even if some adults managed to escape the planet. Captain Carol Reed deployed relativistic kill vehicles against the other Kithra colony worlds. The projectiles traveled at 90% of light speed, carrying enough kinetic energy to shatter continents. Kithra colonies that had existed for thousands of years were reduced to asteroid fields in minutes. The insect species watched their entire civilization disappear in less than a week. The other species in the Zeltharian Confederation tried desperately to distance themselves from their former allies. The aquatic Morathi sent formal surrender documents to Admiral Cross, offering to become human allies in exchange for their survival. The crystalline Vorthak abandoned their home systems entirely, fleeing to distant galaxies where they hoped humans would never find them. None of it mattered to Admiral Cross. The Zeltharian Confederation had collectively failed to prevent Morrison's assassination. They had all shared in the responsibility for his death, and they would all share in the punishment. Human fleets spread out across Confederation space like a plague of destruction, systematically dismantling every trace of the alliance that had dared to kill a human diplomat. The final surrender came from the last Kithra military commander, General Sharpclaw of the Eternal Swarm. His forces were trapped on a mining station in the outer system, surrounded by human ships that could destroy them at any moment. Sharpclaw had once commanded millions of soldiers across dozens of worlds. Now he led fewer than 1,000 survivors of his entire species. Admiral Cross, Sharpclaw transmitted on all frequencies. I surrender unconditionally on behalf of all remaining Kithra forces. We acknowledge that our species committed an unforgivable crime against humanity. We beg for mercy for the few civilians who survive. Cross considered the alien's words carefully before responding. General, your species had the opportunity to show mercy when Ambassador Morrison asked for peaceful cooperation. You chose to murder him instead. Humans do not show mercy to those who refuse to show mercy to us. The final bombardment of the Kithra survivors took only minutes. When it was finished, the insect species that had ruled 12 worlds and thought themselves superior to humans existed only as scattered refugees hiding in the deepest corners of space. Their homeworld was a dead rock orbiting a cold sun. Their colonies were debris fields. Their proud civilization was a cautionary tale. Admiral Cross stood in the ruins of what had once been the diplomatic station where Jake Morrison died. Human engineers had converted it into a memorial, with a simple plaque that bore the ambassador's name and a warning in 12 different alien languages. Here lies a human who came in peace. His death bought the extinction of those who killed him. When news of the Kithra genocide reached Earth, President Carter addressed the planet from the same room where she had authorized the Morrison Protocol. Her message was broadcast to every human colony and every alien civilization that possessed radio technology. Ambassador Jake Morrison represented the best of humanity, Carter said. He believed that different species could work together for mutual benefit. His murder proved that some aliens will never accept humans as equals. But we have shown the galaxy that humans do not need to be accepted as equals. We only need to be feared. The galaxy had learned its lesson. No alien species would ever again kill a human diplomat, not because they respected human rights, but because they had seen what happened to those who shed human blood. The age of human diplomacy was indeed over. The age of human dominance had begun.